Welcome back to the program. It's the Vicki McKenna Show. Yesterday, I brought up the declaration by candidates that they are willing to completely eliminate the school choice program. And I started by talking about the impact that would have on Milwaukee. And of course, Milwaukee's the first choice program. It's the most highly utilized choice program. If it goes away, it does tremendous damage. If all of those kids flood back into the Milwaukee public schools. So, and we're going to still touch on that, but we're going to talk about some other things related to school choice as well. So I went to the school choice expert of Wisconsin, Will Flanders from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Has done, I think, more research than anyone on this program, on the costs, on the benefits, et cetera. Will, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So let's first talk about the impact. Kelda Royce, who's an up-and-comer in the Democrat primary field for governor, Francesca Hong, and the lesser Mandela Barnes. They have all pledged to get rid of the school choice program in Wisconsin. That includes Milwaukee, that's Racine, and that's the statewide program. In Milwaukee, it has the immediate effect of probably upending the Milwaukee public school system the quickest. So let's start with Milwaukee. If we get rid of this program, which is hugely popular, not that they care, what happens?
Yeah, they ought to think about the implications of what they're talking about, even if you don't care about school choice. What you would have is overnight, or if you have, maybe you'll have a glide path, but over time or overnight, you'll have 27,000 kids flooding back into a school system that's already failing. And, there's some free capacity in some parts of the city. There's other parts of the city on the south side that actually are at pretty full capacity. So, you have all these new kids to deal with in a system that's already overwhelmed, already not meeting its expectations by anyone's expectations, proficiency levels under 20%. Adding 27,000 more kids immediately to that system is not going to do anything to improve things.
100% of them, I shouldn't say 100%, so something like 86% of them are in extreme poverty conditions. So we're talking about kids in the choice program from tremendously, let's just call them challenged backgrounds that would be flooding in. So kids that would need IAPs, kids that would need special attention, kids that would need catching up, kids that are behind in reading, and like every kid in Milwaukee Public Schools is. But you're talking about challenged kids flooding back into a system, and the dollars are not there.
Yeah, the kids that leave for school choice in most cases aren't the kids that are doing the best in the public school. They're kids that are, needing something else for whatever reason. The public school wasn't meeting what they need, whether it's academically, whether it's, from a safety standpoint. But in many cases, we see from the data over the years, these kids are behind academically when they get into the choice program. So, yeah, these aren't going to be a bunch of, kids that have been creamed from the crop, as the left likes to falsely argue. These are kids that in many cases will need a lot of extra help to catch up. And by the way, when we talk about the Milwaukee system specifically, it doesn't bring any money back into the public schools for the program to go away. There's no connection between choice and public school funding in the Milwaukee program. So, yeah, you might get some more, per pupil aid over time, but you're not getting any sort of huge supplement for these kids coming back into the system.
No, and remember, Milwaukee spends around $25,000 per kid for utter failure. Okay, for utter failure. In the choice program, you're talking about for, I think, under eighth grade, it's around $11,000, and above eighth grade, it's around, what is it, $13,000, something like that.
$13,000. Yep.
So
13,800.
So less than half and approximately half in the two groups of kids. You're spending half as much money, and those kids. Let's look at this school choice. The outcomes. Those kids are doing better in reading. They're doing better in math. They're doing better on all other types of soft measures. They commit less crimes. They are less depressed. They are less apt to go to prison, et cetera, for half what you're spending in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it proves the lie of the overall court case that we're going through right now, that these schools need more money. And all those findings you just mentioned are things that aren't from some conservative group like me. They're from peer-reviewed academic articles that have analyzed choice kids and found comparable kids in public schools, tracked them over time, and found all those differences that you just mentioned. So, even beyond academics, if you talk to parents on the ground in Milwaukee, there are a myriad of reasons that these schools are better alternatives for their kids. And it's building character. It's building better life outcomes. Not this portrait of a graduate, BS that we're hearing from DPI. It's real effects on students' lives and building morality and things like that have spillover effects well beyond their academic success, which we also see.
Okay. And so almost everyone has to qualify income-wise. But almost everyone in the Milwaukee program, I think that's probably true of the Racine program as well. I'm not sure what the hard, really visceral poverty numbers are with the statewide program, but certainly in Milwaukee, likely in Racine, we're talking about people who aren't just 400% of poverty. We're talking about people who are just, can barely keep the lights on, broke, whose kids are able to take advantage of this education. And that's who's being targeted here by Francesca Hong, by Mandela Barnes, and by Kelda Royce. And we don't know really what David Crowley thinks about this. He hasn't come out about it. We don't really know what Sarah Rodriguez thinks about this. But if the Democrats take control of the legislature and they put a bill on any Democrat governor's desk to eliminate school choice, that Democrat will sign it. And that is an arrow at the heart of poor people in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it's all because of the extent to which folks on the left are beholden to the teachers union above all else, right? That's a huge constituency base and voting in the primary. That's a huge funder, and whatever else, it doesn't matter. What other interests there are. Poor African American families in Milwaukee, poor families in other parts of the state that see this as their one opportunity to actually escape from this sort of system that they've been stuck in for so long. They're willing to take that opportunity away, all in service to the teachers' unions. And there's really no sort of policy argument needed beyond that as to why they're so beholden to ending this program above all other policy priorities, seemingly.
What blows my mind is that the money, if you blow up school choice, that money is not going to remit to the teachers' union. The teachers' union has not been denied access to dollars. We keep spending. Take school choice out of it. We keep radically increasing per pupil spending in the public schools, in the K-12 public schools. If the teachers union has a complaint, it's against the direction of school administrators to expand non-teaching staff over and above adding teaching capacity. So, but it isn't like they're getting the money. If we blow up school choice, you're just making it harder for teachers to handle the amount of kids who are going to be in the schools. And, none of the money is going to remit into the pockets of them so that teachers union can skim dues.
No, you're 100% correct there. You look at, again, we mentioned the $24,000 per kid. Multiply that by the number of kids in every classroom. We're talking about huge amounts of money that are in our schools in Milwaukee and other parts of the state as well. Ask the teachers, how much of that is actually ending up in your pocket, and why is a lower percentage of that ending up in your pocket than it was 15, 20 years ago? And the answer is, as you say, we're expanding bureaucracy. We're expanding the number of positions that don't directly impact students and sort of just iterative things, and then DEI bureaucracies on top of that. So there's little reason to think this will benefit teachers individually. Yes. But yet the unions seem insistent on pushing this agenda.
It has been on their AFT-NEA list of resolutions at every single yearly convention for as long as I can remember. Get rid of school choice. Like somehow that's going to benefit them. It's already hard to recruit teachers, and it's not the pay. It's the conditions of the classroom. In fact, it was the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty who finally put out, a study on this. Teachers are leaving, experienced teachers are leaving because the classroom conditions are so horrible. And by that, I mean, kids aren't paying attention. Kids are out of control. Kids are committing crimes. Kids are attacking teachers. That doesn't change. If you get rid of school choice, that's going to make it harder to attract teachers into the field. Again, it makes no sense, but Kelda Royce in particular is carrying the water for the teachers union. But Mandela Barnes and Francesca Hong desperately want to grab those buckets of water for them. And there's no net benefit to teachers if you get rid of school choice in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'd encourage people to, check out the video that we have on our website, will-law.org, where we interviewed, teachers around the state. Some of them were unwilling to go on camera because they're just so afraid of retribution from district administrators. But the individual stories that teachers have of the horrific environments they face on a regular basis in classrooms is absolutely, what's driving them to leave. And if you add, 27,000 more students on top of that, guess what?
In
We're going
Milwaukee
to
alone.
increase disorder further. Some of those kids might have learned some good character measures in choice schools, but as they're back into these horrible environments, it's just going to snowball and be worse and worse.
Well, yeah, because again, the one kid who wants to learn, the one kid who wants to sit still and pay attention, the one kid who's been trained to do that is the one kid in a classroom of 20 or 25. And 18 of them don't want to do that. Those 18 control the classroom. The disruptors control the classroom. If it's 5 disruptors, the kids who are on the bubble will become disruptors along with them, because that's what they're going to follow. That it's group behavior 101. All right. So let's get to the lawsuit real quick while I have just a couple of minutes left. We have a lawsuit that has been filed by a lawfare organization called Law Forward on behalf of what amounts to teachers union induced plaintiffs, claiming that we need unlimited funding. So 25 grand, not enough per pupil in Milwaukee. $22,000 or whatever it is in Madison, not enough, according to the teachers union. And on top of that, so they want unlimited funding. And on top of that, this lawsuit could obliterate the choice program on its own. So let's talk about the status of this and what is at risk here.
Yeah, so I think, there is one bit of potential good news in that the choice schools were removed by the judge. They're not going to be an intervening party. And I'll put a caveat on this, and I'm one of Will's non-lawyers, so take what I say here with more of a grain of salt than some of the other stuff. But so the choice schools are not part of this lawsuit anymore because the judge said they're not really going to be affected by this. On the surface, it sounds like a good thing. I think our attorney's assessment at this point is that it's a positive thing. But one thing to keep in mind is that this lawsuit still does have the potential, as you say, to blow up the school choice system, because one of the key arguments in the lawsuit is that by funding the school choice system, we're taking funding away from public schools. So if we need by the lawsuit to go to 30,000 to 35,000 to 50,000 per kid, a Democratic legislature, unfriendly to school choice legislature, they're going to come and take that money from the choice program. So it's a positive to be removed from the lawsuit, but it doesn't mean in any sense that the choice programs are much safer today.
No, because if they're not wrapped into what could be a favorable decision for the teachers union on this suit, and you all better pray and vote like that could potentially happen, that'll make them mad. And you've already got 3 leading candidates on the campaign trail making the case that they are going to get rid of the school choice program. So keep that in mind. This is such a critical election. Will Flanders, though, thank you very much. I've run you long enough. I appreciate the time, though.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.